Ahoy hoy, I'm Planarwalk, and apparently NASA is so incompetent that they can't help but splurge the truth into everyone's faces. And by the truth, I mean the misunderstandings of moon landing conspiracy theorists. And by everyone's faces, I mean conspiracy theorists' faces. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, NASA have actually said, okay, we're going to the moon and we're actually going to try and colonize the moon. And, I think that's great. Although conspiracy theorists think, well, this proves that we didn't go to the moon back the other day because they had this secret message that they put in the video or something. Let's take a look at one person that says that kind of stuff.
Through your career and your writing and your acting, you've inspired so many people to enter the sciences. How do you balance science with science fiction? They're both the same.
So what I think Shatner means is not that science is fiction. Like, I've got my phone here. This was created by science. But what he means is that the science fiction that we have today, it all seems very fictional, but in the future it could be a very real possibility. From what I can tell, they didn't have automatic opening and closing doors back when they created Star Trek. We later invented them, and back then it would have seemed like, whoa, this is science fiction. But it later turned out to be something that we could actually create.
50 years ago, we pioneered a path to the moon.
Let's be honest about something. If you ask the average person on the street, did mankind go to the moon, it's highly likely that people would just say, yeah, we went to the moon. And if you ask them how they know or how they can be sure, you'd get answers like, everybody knows we went to the moon, or that's what they taught us in school, or that's what the government says, and why would they lie?
So I personally have never heard the argument, oh, the government tells us, and why would the government lie? Because everyone knows that the government lies about shit. That's tantamount to saying, I believe in the Bible and I'm a Christian because Joel Osteen's a holy man, and he's so righteous, God picked him. And granted, there are some people that would say that. But if you ask someone like me, I would say something like, well, we know that we went to the moon because we can bounce lasers off of the retroreflectors that were left on the moon by the Apollo astronauts. And if NASA did fake the moon landings, Russia would be the first to say, hold on a second here, this is clearly all fake and shot in a studio by Stanley Kubrick. America and the Soviets had this thing called the Cold War going on at the time. Maybe you want to look up on that.
But the bottom line is that the average person doesn't know we went to the moon, they believe what somebody told them about going to the moon. If they're honest, they'd have to admit that the extent of their knowledge of any kind of space travel is relegated to simply having faith in what somebody told them about that supposed event.
Elon Sama, please tell me what to think about the Tesla Roadster in space.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly.
Looking fake means it's real? Okay, I've got it, Supreme God Emperor Elon. By the way, that's not how people like me actually think. That's what conspiracy theorists would like to think I think like. I don't just believe Elon Senpai because he tells me what to believe. I believe what he says because he sure knows a hell of a lot more about the subject than I do. And when it comes to people that are saying that the Tesla in space is fake, they don't give very good reasons as to why it's fake. My guess is that you're going to use some kind of out of context NASA clip, much like the Elon Musk clip that was out of context that I presented earlier, and say, look, this proves that we didn't go to the moon, so therefore we should defund NASA right now! But to actually properly respond to your point earlier about not believing something just because someone tells you, I hope you don't believe that, I don't know, that Vietnam was a thing or that Pearl Harbor happened, because they're just things that people told you happened, right? And you shouldn't believe people that tell you that I'm just some random dude in New Zealand making videos on the internet, because it's clear that I've been hired by Mark Leventhal to work for the OSI. My point is, people believe all kinds of things that other people tell them. The definition of faith that I go by is belief without evidence, and there is certainly a lot of evidence that we went to the moon. And you don't necessarily have to go over all the evidence yourself, because if you did that, you wouldn't really get anywhere in life, would you?
Whether we went to the moon or not is not the point of this video. What's relevant here is that a lot of what people spout as truth is merely a regurgitation of what they've been told over a period of time.
And a large part of that is because there's quite a few people that don't actually give a shit about whether we went to the moon. It doesn't really affect them, so they don't care about it.
Having said that, NASA released a new propaganda video on May 14th entitled, "We Are Going."
Yes, because everything released by NASA is propaganda, right?
To further justify its expensive existence. Remember, NASA's budget for fiscal year 2019 is $21.5 billion. It represents about 0.5% of the $4.4 trillion the United States plans to spend this year. Since its inception, the United States has spent $601.31 billion on NASA alone. That means NASA costs taxpayers almost $60 million, guys, every single day.
Well, considering that the US is spending something like $700 billion on the military, you're complaining about the wrong people here. It's like you going up to a poor person going, "Why are you not giving any money to charity? Look, you should be giving money to charity right now." And then not doing the same thing to a rich person. You know, the rich person just strolls on by going, "Look at this idiot." Although I'm actually curious to see what NASA could do with a bigger budget. Imagine taking 2% of what's spent on military and putting that towards NASA. That'd probably make a decent difference.
Among other heartbreaking problems in America, there are 554,000 homeless Americans on any given night, there are 1.7 million uninsured veterans, and real statistics indicate that there's over a 20% unemployment rate. Now, I'm not advocating extorting people through taxation to pay for any of this. What I'm pointing out here is that politicians are far more interested in funding a wasteful government entity that likes to publish CGI photos and videos when that money could have actually benefited people who really need it.
So as I said before, why not talk about the military? There's $700 billion going towards that, and NASA are actually putting their money towards the things that they're saying they're doing, like maintaining the ISS, launching satellites into space, all that kind of jazz.
Here's what Shatner tells us they're gonna do.
We're going to the moon to stay by 2024.
But in order to go to the moon, he tells us what we have to overcome.
We must overcome radiation.
What? Why must we overcome something we already overcame? You're talking like we haven't done these things before or something.
Or maybe you just don't understand what they're talking about. Have you ever considered that?
You know, that radiation they supposedly already skated through in the Apollo missions from 1969 to 1972 in their tin can wrapped with copious amounts of aluminum foil?
Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Hold on a second. I thought we already solved these challenges way back in 1969.
Okay, Google. When was the microprocessor invented?
1971.
So microprocessors are far more susceptible to radiation than the technology that was on the Apollo missions. And sure, getting a microprocessor through the Van Allen radiation belts may not be extremely difficult. I believe we have done it before, but the problem is if you want to get people in a capsule that also has microprocessors through the Van Allen radiation belts, then that's a whole nother can of worms. Because if you're just sending technology up, just slap a whole lot of shielding on that. She'll be right. But if you want to send up people in that as well, and you want the people to be able to use the technology, just slapping a whole lot of shielding on it isn't really going to solve anything.
It's 2019. We've got 50 years of exponentially expanding technology behind us.
Well, funnily enough, the better the technology is that we want to put on the spacecraft, the more difficult it is to shield against radiation. In fact, too much radiation will screw up the computer that you're using right now. And we've also run into problems when trying to develop really small processors because there's a point at which everyday radiation just throws everything off.
I'll tell you what, since we already threw so much money at it in the 60s and 70s, and since the program works so consistently well, why don't we just fire up the old Apollo program? Then we won't have to solve any of these challenges because we've got a program that already solved them. Wait, what's this?
In a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
we don't have the technology to go to the moon anymore because we destroyed the technology? Guys, I'm not making any of this stuff up.
So some of the technology is still around, it's just sitting in museums because we don't use it anymore. And some of that technology was most definitely destroyed. Do you think they're gonna keep around some huge bulky computer that they're not using anymore? They're definitely gonna destroy that shit. But the computer, it might not be a big problem. But what about the rocket boosters? Well, typically we haven't reused rocket boosters. We'd use them and then just throw them away. So it's reasonable to see how that technology may have been destroyed. And I can understand how attaching a capsule to more modern rocket boosters may not necessarily be the most easy thing to do. And you'd also have to make sure that the old signals are compatible with the signals that we're sending out from the Earth, and all that kind of jazz. But after all that, you go and take a video from the moon, and it's the same quality as back in 1969. Hooray! We did it! But my point is, yeah, we could use old technology, but it's much better to use newer technology. It doesn't work now, but we need to solve these problems because otherwise we're just going to be sending up the same old shit and getting nowhere.
NASA, even in its own multi-million-dollar propaganda video, is telling us that humans can't make it through the deadly radiation, and we don't have the technology to go to the moon because the people we paid to keep all that information safe decided to destroy it. I got an idea. Let's defund NASA. They just admitted they've been lying to us.
Or maybe you just don't understand what they're trying to say. But anyway, leave a like and subscribe if you like this video. Leave a comment leaving your thoughts. As always, a big shout out to my $20 Patron. What, Jesus? If you want to support me, you can do so on Patreon. Link will be in the description. But anyway, I will see you in the next video. Between you and me, thank you for watching.